Basketball fans, what is up? And welcome to another edition of the All Basketball Podcast. And as you know, I'm your host, Maurice Dixon. And we're actually live again on Facebook. Um, Facebook page covering the game.com. But yeah, I'm back to talk about 2024 NBA playoffs where, wow, just like that, we're in the East and West finals. We got Boston and Indiana in the East, and out West, starting Boston and the Celtics and the Pacers are currently playing right now in the third quarter. Tight game. Pretty sure many of you are watching. And tomorrow night we got the Ant-Man with the Timberwolves hosting the Dallas Mavericks, Luka, Kyrie, and that crew. Just wild. I wasn't expecting this to. I felt like I believe Boston. You can check me on coveringthegame.com, even previous podcasts, even the NBA preview show, the one before this, where we previewed the playoffs. Me and some other guys. I felt like Boston would get there, and they did. Indiana totally surprised me, winning Game 7 in New York. And then on the other side, I thought Denver would be there. I thought Dallas had a good chance, possibly beating out OKC, which they did. Definitely got some thoughts on both of those series. But I'll go forward, give a little preview action. As far as Boston, Indiana, I expect the Celtics to win in 5 or 6 games because of their defense, their experience. But Indiana is playing with house money, so they have no pressure. So Boston has all the pressure. 6 conference finals in the past 8 seasons. That's something to trip out to a fact to know that Tatum, Brown have been the centerpiece of that core. They've been in 6 of the last 8 East Finals, and were expected to make the finals last year, but almost pulled off the improbable, coming back down 3-0 against Miami, but it didn't happen. And so this year they got to get it done. Most wins in the NBA. Pretty sure they end up with 62. So you got to get. They have to get to the finals. There's really no excuse, and the road has kind of been clear with all the injuries. You got Embiid being out, Giannis being out. So it's really no excuse for them not to be in the finals. But still got to play the games. They have to play the games and win series. So so they got to get there. Inexcusable to fall to Indiana. I mean, if they don't, kind of going back and forth on whether they should break it up or not. The Tatum Brown duo, they're both still young. And NBA history has shown they usually don't win until you're like 27 most of the time. Now Giannis broke that trend at 26, but everyone else, unless they had like a Hall of Famer or superstar, all-star beside him, like I'm not sure about the Celtics really with Bird, but I know he won early. Magic had Kareem, Kobe had Shaq, Wade had Shaq, Tim Duncan had David Robinson when he won his second. When Duncan was in his second year and he won, so doesn't really happen. So if Tatum and Brown don't get it done, but it may just be time to pull the plug. I mean, you've given it enough. The coach Mazzulla, he wasn't maybe the right person to put in that place. They probably change that position and then see if they can go from there. I know Porzingis is out, but he's always hurt. So, but they should still be to win this series without him. I mean, just what would be the worst is out west with the whoever you meet in the west, because it's size out there. But I think Boston's defense, their experience, should get them over the edge. Indiana's very young. I mean, Siakam has championship experience. Halliburton was up and down last series against the Knicks, so can you really trust him to step up in a moment like this? These finals, I just see them taking their lumps. Boston at 5-6, Tatum, Brown, that core, Holiday's defense. If Porzingis comes back, he'll present problems. And Derek White would be like an X factor, hitting threes, getting to the hole, just making the right plays. I just think their experience will get them over the edge. But Indiana will be a tough challenge. They like to push the ball a lot. They're pressing, something you don't see in today's NBA. They press the Knicks a lot for good reason. In the last series, because the Knicks just didn't have enough bodies. Everybody was getting hurt. Thibodeau already has a short rotation. You got Hart playing the whole game, DiVincenzo playing the whole game. So, yeah, it made sense then, especially with the depth they have. With some of the guys coming off the bench like McConnell and Shepherd. I know they're missing a key guy. A guy I really like, Ben Mathurin, athletic, can shoot it. Still young, but you're not missing him too much. You got Toppin coming off the bench, so they have enough depth, trustable depth that Coach Carlisle likes to use, and a good amount of guys who play. And so they, when you have it like that, they can press. Like tonight, they've already played 10 guys, so they have the depth to do that in that full court press, which you don't see in the NBA anymore. But yeah, that's that series. Then heading out west, excuse me, Dallas and Minnesota. Start with Dallas. They surprised. The Kyrie Luka pairing didn't show good dividends last year. They didn't even make the playoffs, and now they're in the conference finals. So I was dead wrong on that. But they did make some key alterations to their team, like adding Gafford and PJ Washington, and getting what they're getting from rookie Derek Lively. So with what he's able to provide on defense and lob catching ability. So they, when I wrote up my preview, which is on coveringthegame.com months ago, I just didn't see it working. So it is a big gamble, but it's worked out so far for him. So I just have to eat crow that I didn't see that coming. But yeah, them going up against Minnesota, also a team which I was skeptical about, as far as not because they're so young at all, but just some of the decision making as far as how they play basketball and the past few seasons with just doing reckless things, sloppy play, wild play by Towns. But Ant-Man's grown into something special. I mean, definitely a superstar, athletic, scoring at all three levels, and he plays defense, and he just gets after it. And so, and then their size, So they surprised me as far as where they are. Best defensive team in the league, and I just think with them being able to use Jaden McDaniels against Luka and Anthony Edwards on Irving, I think they can neutralize those guys, contain those guys to an extent. Definitely never gonna stop offensive players like that. So, and then just the size they have with Gobert and Washington, Gafford. I'm sorry, I'm naming. With Minnesota size with Towns, Gobert, Naz Reid off the bench. I see, and just the defense. I think Luka's the best offensive player right now in this series. So NBA history says usually if you have the best player most of the time, and he's a top 5 player, which I also heard today, you have one of those guys, you have a good chance of winning the series. So history is on his side as far as that. But I mean, Dallas is a good team too. They're playing a lot better defense, but Minnesota, the best defensive team. Ant-Man's really showing out right now. Conley experienced at the point. Gobert experienced at center. Towns experienced. McDaniels playing defense. And just for them to be able to eliminate the defending champs, I think I'm seeing them top Dallas in minimum 6 games, but this could easily go 7. It can, and I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way. Sometimes just good offense beats good defense. If the defense isn't great enough, and when that comes into play. When that comes into play, it's hard to trump. So, I mean, sometimes it just goes that way, but defense is known to win championships. I mean, especially superior, overpowering defense is usually wins championships. So I think that's what will propel Minnesota into the finals. It will be them in Boston for the final in 2024 finals, NBA finals, and out of that will come the 6th NBA champion since 2019, folks. So we're definitely in a time of parity. Remember, 2019 the Raptors won, 2020 the Lakers won, 21 the Bucks, 22 the Warriors got their 4th and 8 seasons, and then last season Denver. So it's really like the NFL in a sense, even though KC just repeated, but the NBA is there's no dynasty out there. I thought Denver would repeat, but that's obviously not happening this year. So I mean, the last champions to repeat were the Warriors, and then before that, the Heat. Then obviously go back to Lakers, and then Shaq and Kobe Lakers. Then the Bulls or the Nines with their three-peat, both of those teams three-peating. So really in a time of parity, and it's looking like, I can't call the number but in the 70s it was like this. Before I was born, but in the 70s you had like multiple champions. I know the Knicks won a couple of times, the Sonics, the Blazers won. I don't know who I'm missing. I should have researched that, but a little more. But yeah, so I mean, and we're just a few years into this decade, almost at the halfway point, and we're going to have a 4th different champion. If you want to say, if you start from 21, like I said, the Bucks, 22 the Warriors, last year the Nuggets, and then this year it'll be one of these 4 teams Boston, Indiana, Minnesota, or Dallas. So, and I think out of all of them, I don't think the Pacers, I don't know the ABA, but as far as the NBA, the Pacers haven't won the championship, and I'm pretty sure, Minnesota definitely hasn't won one. Dallas back in 11, and then Boston's last one, 2008. So, so that's where we are. But right now, it's conference finals, a long time from the NBA finals. We'll definitely be coming back before you to get a bunch of previews and review some of the stuff that's happening in the playoffs and any other news. Now I want to go back to these previous series, and as I'm listening to shows and podcasts often, you always hear anything happen in Game 7, and for a while it was like, when is it happening? I mean, when is anything happening? But maybe I obviously can't recall everything, but anything did happen in the Game 7, Indiana, New York, and Minnesota and Denver. So as far as to quickly go over Indiana, New York, I thought New York would secure that one since they had home court advantage. The Garden was live, full of well-known faces, but Brunson got hurt, shot bad. DiVincenzo balled out, had like 35, I think. They tried to bring back Anunoby. Hamstring wasn't having it. Hart had a rib issue. And the Pacers they just rolled. I mean, shot over 70% in the first half, 67% for the game. So that set all kinds of records. So, I mean, something I've never seen happen. I mean, it was almost like they had a old school NBA Live experience, or the NBA 2K, where you're greening everything and you're just getting lit up, and you just hitting almost everything. They hit almost 70. I mean, they hit over 70% of their shots in the first half, and then 67% for the game. It's just wild to read, to see, like, especially against the Knicks, who are known to kind of, their foundation is their defense, but with so many guys probably fatigued, I mean, they just ran them out. I mean, the length of the series just went in Indiana's favor. The Pacers started pressing, throwing different guys at Brunson, and you notice McConnell doing a good job on him, and Nesmith with his length, and the healthier team, the deeper team, just end up winning. So, as far as anything happening, that's something. Some of anything really happened when they shot it that well. So that was impressive to see. And then Minnesota and Denver. I mean, I had Denver. I mean, even though they went down 2-0 early, kind of figured out how to get around Minnesota's defense. To tie the series back up, and then they go up 3-2, but to get blown out by 50 in Game 6 in Minnesota, then to come back home. History says champ should close this out. Reigning MVP should close this out. A 3-time MVP winner should. And him and Murray, Jamal Murray, came out, went up 20, was up 20 in the third. Seemed like it was a wrap. Going as kind of scripted, like with history giving them a push. The Nuggets like, okay, yeah, this is a wrap. But third quarter, Minnesota locked down, outscored them 28-14, even though Ant-Man was off, and because he only ended up with 16 points on 6 of 24 shooting, but ended up having 7 assists, 2 steals, which led to, I remember them leading to easy baskets on the other end. So he never really shot it well. Hit a corner three late, hit a step back on the wing at one point. And so it was just like they so didn't have the game. I expected him to, if he didn't have a good game, to go out firing. I mean, and he stayed aggressive, just wasn't hitting. I mean, double team was coming, shot wasn't there. So, but I mean, he found other teammates when he had to. And then who surprised me was Towns. They played him straight up. He burned them for 23. Shot it well. And 12 rebounds to go along with that. And he defended Jokic well, allowing Gobert to kind of roam and keep Aaron Gordon from getting easy stuff, really having a big game. And that was it. I mean, the defense in the second half, it came back around, and they walked them down and ended up winning by 8. I mean, just totally flipped the game over. I mean, you erased a 20-point deficit in the third quarter. And just the fact that anything happened was the fact that the role players for the Wolves stepped up. Usually you don't, especially by game 7, your role players, too many of them don't play well, but I mean, Gobert ended up with 13, made 7 of his 9 free throws. Towns isn't a role player, but Conley hit a big 3 at one point, a tough 3, had 10 points. Then McDaniels, who I definitely thought would still play defense but have a bad game, I mean, ended up with, he matched Towns with 23, hit 3 threes. And Naz Reid off the bench with 11, 6th man of the year. So it was just, I mean, that did happen. I was surprised by that. Usually the others from the away team or the underdog usually don't have that many guys scoring double figures, and they defied the odds. And as Kenny Smith put it, like I put it, Ant-Man didn't have his best game, but you have to have other guys there to help you, pull you through the hole. And Towns, Gobert, especially McDaniels, Reed pulled Ant-Man through that hole, so to speak, and got him to the West Finals on the road. And then the fact that on the other side, Murray and Jokic both had big games, but nobody else stepped up. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. continued to be off, 7 points, 1 of 6 from 3. Caldwell Pope, 5 points. I mean, and Gordon only took 5 shots, 4 points. I mean, just pretty neutralized, and only had 4 rebounds. I mean, Jokic did grab 19 of them, so. And then the bench, which was kind of huge for Denver last year, definitely with Bruce Brown coming in. Somewhat Jeff Green, but I know Bruce Brown had the biggest impact last season. But Christian Brown didn't step up, had all 5 of the bench points. Reggie Jackson didn't have anything. Justin Holiday didn't even get to take a shot. So Jokic and Murray did what they could, but the others, they just, for Denver, didn't step up at home. And that usually happens when role players play better at home. But I mean, I guess it's kind of, when you think about the whole series, everything was kind of flipped on its head. I mean, Minnesota came out, won the first 2 games on the road. Then Denver went to Minnesota and won 2 games. It came back home and won. And then Minnesota had an epic blowout in game 5. So this series just didn't stick the script, and just an interesting occurrence of events as far as that. But the same GM, Tim Connolly, who used to be with Denver, was hired by Minnesota. He pretty much helped build what the Nuggets have right now, build the roster out. They were big on not having any overlap, and everybody kind of, you had Murray scoring, running the point, Jokic running the point, at center, Caldwell Pope playing defense, spotting up, Michael Porter Jr. spotting up as well, and even when he really kicked into gear and picked up his effort, he was getting dunks, he was offensive rebounds, especially some games last year, even though he didn't play too well last postseason either. And then Gordon attacking the rim, hitting the spot up three here and there, blocking the shot here and there, playing some of the best defense, bringing the ball up. So all those pieces kind of didn't overlap, which GM Calvin Booth talked about in the interview I heard. He was big on not having overlap, and it can be an issue with a lot of NBA teams today. They have too much overlap, and when every piece fits right for the Nuggets, they got them to a championship. They went 16-4 in the playoffs last year, even though they didn't beat a 50-win team. But sometimes it just went that way for them, and this year they didn't either, because Minnesota would have been a 50-win team, but in the playoffs to beat, but they just couldn't do it. So just gonna have to figure some things out as far as if they have to retool, how the money's looking, who's getting paid. Their front office will have to deal with all that stuff, which I'm not really going to get into. See if they need to swap out a part for a couple of extra parts, or if some of those role players, younger players, are going to get better, become better spot-up shooters. Because if the starts weren't rolling, but I was always confident that their starts would have it rolling for most part, but this game, all of them didn't, or at least one other. They just needed one other person to kind of offset what Minnesota was doing, because you're up 20, you just can't allow a huge run. And you pretty much, if you can go basket for basket, you can hold on to your lead, but they just flipped the game on them. So the GM who left them and built the Nuggets, built Minnesota to beat the Nuggets, and they did that. It took them 7 games. But props to the Nuggets. The Wolves. Everybody criticized the Gobert trade and what they gave up, but all that Minnesota said, look at us now. We're in the conference finals, and we play great defense. We're favored. Anthony Edwards is ascending. Everybody knows their role. Towns is a formidable second option, co-star, wingman, and one of the best shooting big men in the NBA currently right now, maybe ever. Obviously because they shoot so many threes. And he sometimes he relies on it too much, but he nets it up pretty well, at least 40%. So excuse me. We'll see how things shake out for the Nuggets, see if they can get back to the top of the mountain. And then the other series, which was intriguing, and had some shaky moments. It seemed like between Dallas and OKC, Dallas had a chance to go up 3-1, squandered that. Luka missed a couple of free throws, 2-2 going back to OKC. But Luka went in there, balled out, redeemed himself, put Dallas back in front. And then game 6, they overcame a double-digit lead. Kyrie got hot at the end, and then but Shai Gilgeous was matching them on the other end, but just the help wasn't there as far as the supporting cast. Really young team, light in the tail, so to speak. Not much size. I mean, Holmgren's just a rookie, and he's real thin. And so, and I mean, Dallas has a good amount of size, and they drop a 1 point game. And what I was, the biggest issue I had with this game was the fact that the decision by Coach Dagnall of the Thunder to challenge that last play, because you have SGA, so he gets the PJ Washington shooting from the corner, and he did hit the ball, but he was able to pump fake. And so with being able to pump fake, not pump fake, I'm sorry, double clutch, the ball wasn't knocked away. So, and then SGA ended up hitting his arm, and they called a foul, which it was a foul. I mean, if I'm shooting and you hit the ball, but I still have control of it through a double clutch, and you hit me somewhere else, it's not incidental contact. It's a foul. Now, if the ball is loose and you hit me on the wrist, then okay, it's no foul. Totally understandable, but it was a foul. So with like 3 seconds left, OKC staff, they decided to challenge the call with their one timeout. So they lose the challenge, and Washington makes 2 of the 3. He missed the third one intentionally because he knew they didn't have any timeouts. And I think that was just a huge mistake. Yeah, hindsight's 20/20, but say you don't challenge the call. Okay, he has 3 free throws. That puts them up. So the score would be 118-116. You have your timeout with 3 seconds left. You get to advance the ball, and worst case, tied up. Maybe you still lose. In best case, you win the game with a 3-pointer because you're able to advance the ball, kick it in to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, maybe Isaiah Joe, one of the other shooters, and Dort. I mean, anybody you make a 3 and you win the game. You go back home, game 7, it's your place. But I didn't think it's too risky to burn that timeout and lose that challenge. I feel like the Lakers, they fell victim to the same thing in game 5 in Denver. I mean, they challenged the play. It was the final timeout. They were adamant about it. Ham challenged it. They won the challenge, but Reeves missed that crucial corner 3. And then pretty much Murray ends up hitting the floater. They only have 3 seconds left. Around that, a few seconds, I mean, LeBron gets the ball. Jokic just kind of walls him off, and then he passes to Taurean Prince, and it's just a heave, and it's way off. Caldwell Pope contests it, hands up, and they lose because they won the challenge, but they won a little battle, which they kind of didn't win, and they end up losing the war because you don't have a timeout. You disregard that challenge. You keep your timeout. Murray hits that floater. You have a chance to get a better shot, tie the game. Best case, win the game with the 3. And so, so I thought it was just back to OKC, a bad decision by the coach of the year. But I mean, young team, they gotta take their lumps. I mean, history's just proven that. I mean, it proved it here. I mean, had a great regular season. SGA was my MVP if I had to vote, because I feel like he was outstanding. What do you have? More than what was it? About more than 50 games with at least 30 points. I mean, He was close to leading the NBA in scoring. Didn't have, and he led in steals. He just had a year that nobody expected. I mean, put up 30 last year, got him into the play-in. They didn't go past that, but to go from the play-in to number one seed in the West, the tougher conference, I mean, what an accomplishment. So I think he definitely deserved MVP, but the fact that Jokic had won, Embiid rightfully got it, but he just beat out Jokic, and the run Jokic has to the finals, winning finals MVP, and the media he had built up credit, which is the funny thing with the MVP. I mean, you have eye test that goes into it. You have history. You have certain big games you have to play well in. You have storylines. So when a lot of those facts go in, and different writers weigh different factors. I mean, me as a consumer of the NBA, low-level writer, I pretty much feel like you just go into the season with a fresh slate. Who was impressive this year? Because it's all about this year, and people constantly stress it's a regular season award. And sometimes you get the playoffs, it's like, oh, why isn't this guy's MVP, but this guy played better. So if it's for that season, fresh slate, I mean, yeah, you take some historical context into it, but you don't want to have, you don't want to rely too heavily on voter fatigue, but it can be to where a guy's doing the same great thing, and but if he adds the thing he does, then, but if he keeps doing having around the same numbers, I can see where the fatigue sets in. Like, oh, he's not doing anything really. It's impressive, but it isn't extraordinarily impressive. Like, it isn't anything we haven't seen. And the criteria is all over the place. But Jokic didn't have voter fatigue against him, but he had credit from the previous season. SGA didn't have much, and but next year he'll have some credit in the basket. I mean, him, Luka, and Ant-Man, he'll have some. So, and if everything rolls along and it goes well, then probably one of those guys will be MVP. But they all pretty much end up with kind of the same record, very similar records, even though OKC got the first seed. But maybe SGA probably need to have a few more rebounds and assists, because Jokic had a respectable amount of points. Then he had rebounds and assists, and probably his PER was up there, stuff like that. And just how Denver was kind of still rolling along. I think it was when it came down to it, if SGA would have had a few more, if they would have boosted up their record a little, like stretched out the distance of their record, I think he would have had a better chance, since he didn't have any credit from last season. But I felt like the media didn't want to miss on Jokic and felt like he was going to be winning a second straight title. So it's kind of like, well, we missed out kind of giving him MVP last year, especially the way we gave it to Embiid, and he didn't look great in the playoffs. Did his usual, just fading as it gets tighter. He just kind of just a major field goal percentage drop off point. His average dropped off by like 10 points. It was just crazy. So they didn't want to miss on Jokic. Feel like it was going to be something special, and he didn't get to the finals. So, and that's just, unfortunately, or however you view it, how the MVP works. It's kind of about building up previous cachet, storyline. You can't have too much voter fatigue against you. You got to pass the eye test. History plays a big part because the grace of the past, people are like, well, you're almost ranked up against somebody who's not playing, to be honest. when they when they were saying, well, should we give Jokic 3 straight MVPs? Probably same thing with LeBron. And then who's he playing with? And then the whole thing, if you take this person off, which to me is kind of it just doesn't hold much validity. If you take this person off, then how will this team be? I feel like unless you have a really dynamic duo, but then, yeah, if you take one off and the other guy still keeps them going, then okay, that gives that guy more value to be an MVP, reason to be an MVP. But then you have like Shaq and Kobe on the same team, they cancel each other out. But then the media kind of disproved that, because when Wade and LeBron still got 2 more MVPs. When he went to Miami, he didn't. It wasn't canceled out. And then you got Steph getting unanimous, being the only one. Then Shaq and LeBron upset because they didn't become unanimous. But hey, you're still MVP. But I guess to have that little notation on your resume, just when it comes down to greatness and all-time greatness, just a good thing to have. I mean, so far only Steph has that unanimous MVP. And just the way the NBA shakes out, the way it goes, but you can't give it all to the fans, you can't give it all to the players, because I mean, when they did that, I mean, Kareem probably deserved it because they knew how good he was. I didn't see him play that much. Was too young, not born at the time, and then too young. It was around during the 80s with the Lakers, but the year they voted him MVP, the team was under 500. So the NBA was like, we got to give it to the media because we need objectivity, even though someone's not going to be totally objective. You would hope they would be as objective as possible. I guess look at it like as the 80-20 rule. You're hoping you get 80% of the voters, or how they look into it, is with objectivity. It's not subjective. But yes, so that was the way that shaked out. Now you got a bunch of teams just trying to retool. Like Cleveland, figure out what they're gonna do. The Knicks figure out the moves they want to make. Other playoff teams needing upgrades at certain positions, like Orlando. The Bucks getting healthy and getting more cohesion. Miami getting healthier, possibly making some moves. And then the Thunder figuring out, they got these picks, figuring out what they're gonna do with summer. If they're gonna try to bring in a veteran they can use. They brought in Gordon Hayward, but he didn't play much. Then Giddey seemed to be more of a liability than someone they can use, so he didn't play much. And is there too much overlap with him and Shai Gilgeous there to where Giddey has to have some value? He put him on another team as a point guard. Maybe that brings you back something of value you can use, or some size, or they have the draft coming up. So yeah, they're going to definitely need some size to go alongside Holmgren, and he should get a little stronger, add a little muscle to his frame. He's not going to be but so big. He really don't have to be in the NBA, especially today's NBA. But so yeah, so they're just them retooling and trying to stay atop the mountain, because everybody atop the West has size and skill and players in their prime. So you see if OKC makes a major move to upgrade the roster and help them go further, because they were impressive this postseason. Got some favorable matchups and went far, but as far as you're usually gonna go when you're that young in the NBA. You're usually not gonna go too far, and they didn't. But win a series, sweep the Pelicans, and then push Dallas to 6. Pretty much could have almost been a 7-game series. So that's really good for that young team on the rise. And you got see what Phoenix is gonna do. They decide to get a point guard. They're gonna keep BBD, Booker, Beal, and Durant together. Brought in Mike Budenholzer as a new coach. Pretty much scapegoated Frank Vogel. I mean, second time he's been scapegoated. Team wasn't built right. It wasn't his fault. They had a point guard, but players have a lot of power, and I guess the players wasn't feeling them. I don't know if you guys heard Bradley Beal. Durant wasn't saying much. You saw Beal's little moment when he walked off the floor during the game. So it's like they got some things to figure out there. And the Lakers still looking for a coach. The latest I've seen was they're considering James Borrega, Sam Cassell, and JJ Redick, who does a podcast with LeBron. So I guess in the coming days or weeks, the Lakers will be making the decision on their new head coach. Scapegoated Darvin Ham. I mean, got to the West Finals last year. Played Denver in the tough 5 games this season. Finishes as a 7th seed. Had some injuries, but you got LeBron and AD. But I guess it came down to, again, coach wasn't well liked, so got to move on, even though he did the best he could with what he had. And they really overachieved last season. I mean, when they made it to the conference finals, but so then you got the draft and free agency. But right now we got the conference finals. Want to be checking that out. I'm sure you guys are too. Just know whenever I go live, you don't agree with something, or you just spur of the moment got some time, want to come on, I'll gladly send you the link. Would love to hear from some of my Facebook friends watching. Definitely check me out in the replay. This will be on Spotify. They have video as well, though. It'll be here on Facebook. And we'll see how this thing shakes out. So that's all I got. Appreciate y'all for watching at some point. Another episode of the All Basketball Podcast. Just me, Maurice Dixon. Offer my expectations for the 2024 conference finals. So peace until next time. Be blessed in Jesus' name. Check it out on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, or right here on Facebook, because I was live. Catch y'all next time.